Well, if it was clinical in the first game, it was convincing in the second T20 International. Same venue, Eden Park in Auckland, India. Go 2 up in the series. Just to assess everything here on My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live for the second consecutive victory, again finishing with a 6. Shreyas Iyer 2 days ago, and it was Shivam Dube just coming to bat, decided that he was going to also deposit the ball in the relatively short boundaries. To assess it all, Zaheer Khan and Harsha Bhogle, first of all, in deference not only to the Padma Shri but also to the 40 runs spot on at the end of 6 overs.
Course.
The My 11 Circle.
Even though it was spot on, I think that was a spot of bother, I would say. At that stage, the game could have gone either way. I think New Zealand needed that to defend this total in the first 6 overs. Maybe pick those important wickets which they did. Rohit and Virat was a big wickets. For them to stay in the game at that stage. But that has been the story for the game, isn't it? Like first 6 overs with the bat, they felt that okay, we did enough. 48 runs, 1 wicket, and here taking 2 wickets for 40 runs, they had that chance. But after that, it wasn't their match, be it with the bat or with the ball. I think the story was pretty much similar.
You can see by the innings progression that New Zealand would not have been unhappy with those 2 wickets in that power play. But after that 7 to 15, that gulf between 46 for 3 and 63 for no loss, which finally culminated in a partnership of 86 of 67 deliveries.
And was also probably the best period of batsmanship. I keep saying that these two are going to take the pressure off Virat by playing on either side of him, Rahul above and Shreyas Iyer below. It'll be very interesting to ask them which innings they were prouder of. Whether in the first T20 when they got 15, 20 odd balls each, or whether it was this one where they were 40 for 2, couldn't afford to lose another wicket there, played in ones and twos, didn't matter if the asking rate went to 8 and over and just finished it clinically. This was the kind of run chase I wanted to see from Shreyas Iyer. Rahul we've been seeing for a while, he's in tremendous form, but I wanted to see this kind of run chase from Shreyas Iyer, and I think he's passed it.
I suspect, to answer Harsha's question, probably the latter, because if you throw a bit of a challenge in front of batsmen, those 2 wickets, maybe batting conditions not quite the same as 48 hours earlier, they'd probably pick today.
Yes, I think the best way to determine is what was the external factors, and I think the pressure was certainly more on today's innings for sure because of the conditions, and also we've seen low scoring games, run chases can be tricky as well. You feel that okay, you're not chasing that big a target, but that tend to give you that comfort zone as well, that okay, I can see it through. Certainly 2-3 overs of good bowling, not many runs scored, and that pressure builds on. So that's something which you have to deal with. And then 2 wickets down, and you look at the wickets like Rohit and Virat, if they are back in the pavilion, that is certainly going to add that extra pressure, and for the opposition to feel that they have a chance. One more wicket there could have really doubled that pressure on Shivam Dube coming into bat next, or Manish Pandey. So I think from that perspective, it was a very easy decision for us to figure out which innings was better. I think this was by far I think better innings in terms of gaining that confidence.
Yeah, I also thought they played it well. Look at Mitch Santner. 4 overs, none for 19. They realized he's the danger guy there. So they played him out. They didn't take any chances against Santner. And then the chance that Shreyas took was against Sodhi.
That too later on.
Later on. And then that Hamish Bennett over was when, India were always going to win once they got that far. But that over was the turning point. So really, really enjoyed this chase. And if the New Zealand have looked back at this series, they'll probably go and play marbles and try and figure out where the stump is and try and hit the stumps at least once.
Right in front of them. But the maturity of that partnership really is, as Harsha alluded to, it was the first bit, because when Santner and Southee came on in tandem, over 7 to 10, they scored just 21 runs, only 1 boundary, but they realized they were just getting into it, and then came any acceleration needed later on.
And I think inherently the confidence that they can do it when the situation warrants. So they're playing within themselves a little bit. I think Shreyas, more than Rahul, is always itching to play that big shot. Rahul has played a little bit more, is a little more rounded now. You got the impression with Shreyas, he was itching to play that big shot from time to time. But if these two are going to bat together for a little longer, they've got to sort their running out if they've got to play longer. But it's very good to see this kind of maturity. This is the kind of innings that you want to throw your young players into and see how they respond. So It wasn't a huge target, but no Rohit, no Virat, and they still went and did it. That was a big plus.
And for Shreyas Iyer, really, we showed you at the very start that he had those couple of not outs, which means he's taken the team home. In this case, it wasn't a not out technically, but he really took the team home.
I wonder if he was trying to finish it in style.
was.
There is that element to Shreyas, where there's an element of the showman in Shreyas. He wants to show, which will also, I think, get little, change with time. But doesn't matter. By the time he got out, he had already done what was required of him as a top order batsman.
And when you talk of Rahul, the run machine, now it's 9 half-century scores in 13 innings, 14 innings. And I think that you've got to capitalize. It's one thing to say that you're in form. It's one thing to capitalize on any sort of form you have.
I think he's enjoying this phase.
Yeah.
You can see that he's calm, he's composed, he's very well assured to himself. I think rather than anyone else, he's taking that confidence forward, and you can see it with the body language as well. And when you're going through this kind of phase, it's just about sticking to those routines. Staying in that zone, and the more you stay in that zone, it's gonna only get better from here. I think he's got that monkey off his back that whether he's going to be part of the playing 11, not going to be part of the playing 11, he's feeling at home. You can see that, and that's a great plus. Wicket keeping is actually going to add to that. So he should look at it that way. Put in that extra work which is required, and not for this format. I think for ODIs, he'll have to physically be ready, and if he starts enjoying it, I think it will certainly change the balance of the playing 11 for sure. We often talk about having that extra batsman, and you've seen some kind of bowling combination which this Indian team has been picking was on the basis of adding that extra batsman. So they will be able to add that extra bowler and make the right decision with regard to the bowling unit, and that's the balance which possibly Virat Kohli was talking about. When he said that KL it's a good sign that KL has done well with the gloves. So I think you can see that the think tank is moving in that direction of giving more responsibility to KL. And they want him to persist with his performances, what he has been doing.
He kept quite well today, actually. There was one ball, I think the Jadeja bowled just close to the tram line, either a wide or just close to a wide, and he gathered that well, took off the stumps, hit the bails. There's not a stumping, but he's showing that. I mean, his keeping is not. He's not just a stopgap keeper. He's not someone there to block the ball. He's better than that. And I like what Zach says. Suppose he can create a niche for himself at 5 in the one-day game, because you're already seeing today again Prithvi Shaw, even though India lost, 55 of 38. So as a long term, currently Shikhar is doing really well. You don't need a replacement for Shikhar just yet, but if you do, you're probably going to find a better replacement at number 1 than at number 5. So if you can do that and he can start winning matches from 5, it just makes it so easy for the captain, this versatility. And I can open, I can bat at 5.
And the captain did say that in the press conference. I mean, we saw that the adjustment they had to make against Australia, and it was just an adjustment. He adapted well, and it's sort of just he's taken that little piece of paper and put it on the seat, just like you see sometimes in our trains when you reserve the seat, you see your name little there. Reserved seat. He's kept it.
In my case, always with the spelling wrong. On a train, when you go, you see that thing pasted outside, and you go and look. It's amazing how many times I've looked through that list and said, "But I have a reservation," and then it's spelled completely different. But yeah, I get the point.
And of course, it's an easier name to spell. Just simple.
Gautam is easier. Yeah, Zaheer is easier. Gautam is easier. Mine that all.
Not the full name. Not the full name as per the Padma Shri.
Yes.
But just looking at India's performance, I think you'd have to say it was set up by the bowlers. The batsmen were in a spot of bother, but as we did assess earlier, it was the bowling and the fielding. And I think we should look at this one more time, have a look at the performances. He was able to leave 2 of Shardul Thakur's overs out, get it out from Shivam Dube, picked up a wicket again. But the economy rates that you see from Shami, Bumrah and Jadeja were really responsible for
I'd love to get Zach's view on this. It's not always that a team goes to New Zealand and outbowls New Zealand in their country. And I think India outbowled New Zealand today. Yeah. Maybe the conditions were a little better for India, but still, India outbowled New Zealand. There's no doubt at all.
But in a situation where New Zealand opted to bat first, and India would have been in that.
And end of the power play, it was open game. So I think that's where the bowler's job is getting highlighted. So in T20 format, it's very important that you stay in the game through and through. You cannot relax at any stage, and especially after that power play. So I think for that you need understanding. It's a T20 format. Batsmen are going to come hard at you in the first 6 overs. It's about how you respond after that. And I think, that's where this bowling unit has scored nicely in today's game. I think the whole game, you can see the dominance of Indians over New Zealand. The tone was set by bowling. And I think in a way, after that first match, they were anticipating that it might be one of those days where as a bowling unit, we might have to face similar kind of difficulties. So they were prepared for it. It's like, when you go in a fight, you don't expect to get punches falling on you, then there's something wrong. If you go in the fight with knowing that, okay, we're going to hit two, but we might face a couple of ourselves as well, so that is something which changes your mindset. I think, it was that kind of a mindset which Indian bowling unit walked on the field today.
And it's not that New Zealand had the worst start. Munro and Guptill got them off to a decent start. 48 in the power play was still setting them up for 160.
7 to 15, I think, was the turning point. 7 to 15 when India were bowling. When Williamson got stuck and Taylor got stuck, I think that was the turning point. That 46 with 3 there, both Williamson and Taylor scored at a strike rate well below 100. I think that was the turning
tandem,
point.
32 of 44 between the two of them.
Yeah, that's the one.
And that really tells the story of, and remember, these were the same two players who had taken New Zealand to a total of in excess of 200, over 100 runs of 56 deliveries was what Taylor and Williamson had put together in the first T20 international. So it meant that in terms of the balances that you got in your My 11 circle teams, there had to be a few changes. You couldn't just keep your team riding for the next one as you might do in certain games. In this case, KL Rahul captain, Shreyas Iyer vice captain, slight changes. You had to have Tim Southee in there. Seifert as well was getting you points with both bat and taking that fabulous catch of Virat Kohli. But this again, as we keep reminding you, is the ultimate team of the day. Another word with you comes to mind, the utopian team of the day, because not everybody necessarily has these 11 in that combination. But you have close to it, you probably will be the one who's our ultimate champion of the day, our My 11 Circle champion of the day. And today it is with 395.75 points, Pankhi Lal from Rajasthan. And what you notice there is first game 500 plus, this time 395, the obvious change from a slightly lower scoring match. Remember last time around you had 550 plus scores for the first time in T20 cricket.
I thought when he said what you notice there is his parting. Oh. Parting of his hair in the foot. Very sort of.
Yes, a good boy.
Pankhi Lal, क्या बात है Pankhi Lal. Pankhi Lal जी आप जॉय के questions answer कर सकते हैं तो उसमें भी शामिल हो जाइए.
Yeah, I think everyone who's focused on one game tends not to focus on the other, because we've never really seen our good friend Crick Rohit ever come up in his My 11 circle team. I'm sure he'd be pretty decent at it with the speedy answers to his questions.
Get him out of the quiz. He's making it boring. Get him out of the quiz.
Yes, absolutely. We need to do that. But remember now, finally, they're done with Auckland, but we're not moving too far away from Auckland for the next game. It's just a short drive away to Hamilton for the third T20 International in 3 days' time on the 29th. This is where the action takes place. Before moving, of course, to the more picturesque climbs of Mount Maunganui. But for now, all focus will be on that third game, particularly from New Zealand's point of view, because they need to turn things around.
Isn't this the road where you get the Bombay Hills?
It is.
Auckland to Hamilton, and you've got that express, that motorway, you just go down the motorway where people drive very fast.
And the only people who don't drive very fast are those who want to stop and watch see where Lord of the Rings was shot and go and actually experience the set, which is still pretty much intact.
Wasn't that in Wellington, though?
No, very much there.
There too?
Hamilton.
Ah, okay.
Outskirts of Hamilton.
Okay. Of course, he has been there. The way he was saying it, I knew that, okay, on the way he has taken that
He might be a crowd shot in the Lord of the Rings as well. Who knows?
No, I wish I was.
Which reminds, yeah, that's a trivia question, wasn't it? Was it that Martin Crowe was in a crowd shot in The Gladiator?
Gladiator, yes.
That Russell Crowe said to his cousins, I'm shooting this film, do you want to come along? So Martin and Jeff said, okay, we'll go along. And so now what do you do once you're there? So they put them in the crowd shot. So there's Martin and Jeff Crowe in the crowd shots in The Gladiator.
Yes, indeed.
Next time we watch the movie, we have to look for it.
Search for them.
None of the cricket was another era from New Zealand cricket. This time around, will they have to try and get somebody from the crowd maybe? Somebody from a crowd shot to try and rescue them, or at least somebody from the squad. Will they need to make some changes? There were no changes to either side from the first to the second T20 internationals in Auckland. Now, the one who's missed out, but I'm not sure you necessarily drop him for that, is Colin de Grandhomme. Hasn't bowled a ball, scored 4 runs in a total of 2
Yeah, why hasn't he bowled? Today I thought if he can take the pace off on a slightly slowish pitch, I thought they might use Colin de Grandhomme. So there's something about his bowling that's affecting him. I think 4 is too high for him as a batsman. Unless they've just sent him out there and say, it doesn't matter if you get out, we've got Ross Taylor behind you. But yeah, I think they'll still keep him. The change might come, say, maybe a Tickner or a Daryl Mitchell that will add to their batting as well.
Also, Scott Kuggeleijn, I know I mentioned that in the previous game. He was impactful the last time when New Zealand played India. He gets up a decent pace and he can bat.
And CSK, no?
Well, I think after today's match, if you've seen that in today's match, they didn't make any changes. The next game, they will look back and say that what was the reason that we couldn't really win this game, and the answer will be around batting. So I think the real change must happen around that, and I fully agree with you that Colin de Grandhomme, I think he's batting too high for his number. He's someone who should use his power at the back end of the innings. So that one change has to happen for sure. You've seen in the first couple of games he has not looked comfortable or maybe clear in his thought process, because he's a naturally aggressive player and he has done well at that number 5, number 6 position. So that is one change I think New Zealand must do going forward in this series for sure, because if you lose that wicket, it adds that pressure of wicket on anyone who's batting in the middle. Today also you've seen that he had come there in the previous match. Also he got out early. And that wicket column plays on batsman's mind. It doesn't matter, who is there in the middle. So that's something which they'll have to do. Apart from that, I think the start has been good in both the matches. So the intent shown by both the openers, they're looking in good touch, they're looking in form. So they should continue with that. And the captain needs to step up, because he's someone who holds that key in the middle overs for New Zealand when the spinners are bowling. So that's the only player who can put that pressure on spinners. So from New Zealand's point of view, those middle overs, Kane Williamson holds the key for them.
Interesting point of view from Virat Kohli post the game, and this is something you expect from the home side more than anything else, is he felt that India understood the angles of the ground better.
It's an interesting one. I once asked Shane Warne when they were playing at Jaipur, Rajasthan Royals, and I said, what is the home advantage on a deck? It's a T20 pitch. He said, you'd be surprised how much understanding the angles of the ground helps. Just where to keep your backward point fielder, maybe just an extra yard to the left on the surface, which we understand that a visiting team may not understand. So I can see where now Virat's coming from, saying he understood the angles. But irrespective of what angle it is, it's such a small ground. I mean, that top edge of KL Rahul that went for 6, just push the boundary back as far as it can. It's 48, 50 meters there.
And it wasn't even
such a small boundary.
It wasn't even the kind of top edge that you slash and it goes in the direction you wanted. He was playing towards the onside. It went the wrong way for 6.
I mean, I can understand it's a heritage ground. It's been like this for God knows how many years. I know they turned the angle, they changed the shape a little bit. But with a new game, with the power, the batsmen are physically stronger than they've ever been before. The bats are so much better. See, Shreyas Iyer, you look at Shreyas Iyer, you don't think he's this big Hulk, right? He hits 6s for fun. You've got to have a bigger ground than this. You can't have this tiny little ground. You can play on a set tomorrow.
Before we actually talk about India, I think I'm going to put a question to both my experts here, and this is something we can actually record for posterity. We've often heard it asked. I mean, it's one thing to say that when a ground's too small, make sure it's bigger, keep the boundaries away. Is there even a case for some sort of standardization, or does that take away from?
But I think the ICC has standardized the boundary length at between. There's a range. But all the grounds that existed before this came along are allowed to continue where they are. So if you're building a new test match ground today or a T20 ground, you cannot have a boundary this size. It has to be bigger than this. Also, there are now restrictions on the distance between the cement of the stands and the boundary rope. So I asked the people in Rajkot, so you got such a big ground, why didn't you push it back? He said, well, we need to keep that much space too. So Rajkot was a ground that is big, but the boundary ropes are brought in a little bit. It was still 75 meters. That boundary behind the key was 50. That's 25 meters.
Birmingham had 58 meters when Bairstow was hitting those sixes, but that was for a different reason. They were playing on a side pitch.
But you can't play an international on a side pitch. I've heard this told so many times. Can you imagine India versus England on a side pitch? And what are they going to play? They're going to play some Birmingham outer suburbs or inner suburbs on the centre pitch? I cannot understand this.
Fair enough, fair
You
enough.
have to play your big matches on the best pitch.
We remember the 92 World Cup, again, one of the prettiest grounds you can ever imagine in Pukekura Park, New Plymouth. Sri Lanka played Zimbabwe, 312 for 7 was put on. And the first thing that everyone said was, yes, Zimbabwe have made 312, but it's more like a 240 score because of the size of the ground. It's tiny. It had about 55-meter boundary.
And we've seen it in the first match of this series. 203 was effectively 180, 185. So that is something which a dimension of the ground can have the impact. But it's only this country, I think, where every time we go visit this country, we talk about this dimension that adds to that psychological, say, advantage disadvantage of the game, when you're touring New Zealand, for sure. And at times we've seen that if the wicket is so helpful, then these boundaries also don't come into equation at all. But on a placid track, yes, then it can turn to be a nightmare for any bowler.
Like that.
And it's not.
We have some like that. Wankhede is not the biggest.
Yeah.
But it's bigger than this. But Wankhede is not the biggest. Kotla is small. We have some of these ourselves.
It's not necessarily to do with a small town like New Plymouth is. Queenstown is small, it's picturesque, but the playing surface is actually large.
And Australia, all the grounds are big. Indore is also small.
Smallish, yeah.
Indore is small. Some of these grounds are really small in India too.
A lot of talk about Lucknow as well when Afghanistan played West Indies there. It's a huge stadium, but in terms of once the boundaries are placed, the boundaries are not always the longest in certain parts. But let's now talk about the Indian squad, and we reckon that the squad will remain the squad in the 11. Should Ali remain the 11? No debate here, gentlemen.
What do you think?
I don't think there will be any debate. And also, if you look at the series, there are matches which are condensed as well in terms of time in between the games. So that is something which is gonna tilt in the same playing 11's favor. Unless, why fix it if it's not broken? So that is something which will be the philosophy. Unless Saini, the jet lag talk has been going on for a long time, and they think that okay, he's fit to play a game now and not feeling sleepy, drowsy, he has enough time. So maybe he might replace Shardul. That's the only change. Which again, is something that maybe they've gone back to Shardul in this series because Saini was not fully fit to take the field in other ways.
But also there's a short travel and 2 days off. But Wednesday, travel Thursday, play Friday, travel Saturday, play Sunday. There it might come in a little bit. They might want to leave one of the bowlers out.
And that's when they're not, here they were staying in the same venue. It's a short drive to Hamilton. Then will be a slight bit of a move.
It's at Wellington, isn't it?
Mount Maunganui and then back to Wellington.
Back to Wellington, yeah.
So that's what the schedule that lies ahead for Team India. But just another reminder that game after game, we will encourage you to play the My 11 Circle contest. Simple, download the app, get your team together, select an 11, get a captain and a vice captain. Ideally make KL Rahul captain no matter what you do. Don't listen to what anybody else has to say. But I managed to get away with my team despite not having KL Rahul as captain thanks to the two Tims, Tim Seifert and Tim Saudi. Yeah, you have to be generous. You have to get someone from the opposition in if you want to make points. It's not all about patriotism, even though it happens to be Republic Day. Joy factor next. We've had a very interesting question in the first T20 International. This time too, it was something that you had to really read into the question. It didn't give away too much. There was a quick reminder of what the question was. Owen Morgan was in there as in first place with 606, Babar Azam in second with 585. Now remember, the first clue you get with any question set by Joy Bhattacharya, it's got to be topical. There's got to be some relevance. So it wasn't Republic Day, quite. The relevance was under-19 cricket. We've got an under-19 World Cup in progress at the moment. And the answer is Sarfraz Khan, double topical. Just made 301 in the Ranji Trophy. He was this was the list for the most runs in the under-19 Cricket World Cup. Owen Morgan, Sarfraz Khan and Babar Azam were top there. Did you get
if Sarfaraz goes as far as either of those two have gone, he'll be overjoyed. I mean, Owen Morgan is a fantastic white ball player. Babar Azam is the next big thing, I think, in international batting, if he can play as well in Test cricket. So if Sarfaraz can go half as far as they, he'll be happy.
Yes, certainly was. But I mean, just before we find out who the winner is, and I'm wondering if we're holding our breaths for that or not, just quick word on Sarfaraz. Just days after we saw Manoj Tiwari get a 100 in a Ranji Trophy game, but in this case, it was the opposition having put on 600 plus, almost taking us back to Karnataka, Delhi, 700 chasing 700.
Well, I mean, a 300 is a 300. You know, that innings, it takes a lot for any batsman to get to 300. And that speaks a lot about how one has approached the game. And chasing down, what, 600 plus?
Yes.
That's something. I mean, when a team scores that sets that kind of a target, you know, you can pretty much think that the game is over. But, you know, for someone to believe that, you know, you can actually achieve that target is again, you know, a show of a character for any batsman. And there, Sarfaraz should take a lot of confidence and pride in this innings to take his career forward for sure. Like we've seen it with many players. You know, these kind of innings can actually revive your career. It can really add that required boost in terms of your own abilities. So that's how you should look at it. And now play the rest of the season with this kind of passion and aggression.
Tired. He actually said at around 200, when he got to his 250, he was winded.
The feeling was that Sarfaraz would get tired around 50. So he did really
well. He did well.
300. Kings, isn't he? Sarfaraz back with Kings.
Yes.
So Kings 11, actually, if you look at it, they've got KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal. I'm not even talking the mighty Chris Gayle, Nicholas Puran, now Sarfaraz. They're building quite a side.
Yep, and he's got all those dinky shots, which maybe he wouldn't have played in that 100, but we've kept you waiting long enough. The drum rolls are out. Who is it? Who is our winner? We mentioned him already once on the show. Is it him again? Yes, it is him again. But it's just one of those things. Fastest finger first. I know that so many of you are taking part and wondering, why is it that Rick Rohit always gets there? Well, he's the quickest one to get there. He doesn't have a hotline to Joy Bhattacharya. We promise you that. He just happens to get there very quickly. But so congratulations once again. Sarfaraz Khan was the answer on this occasion. Well, on that note, time to say goodbye. And once again, wishing all of you a very happy Republic Day. Once again, many congratulations to Zaheer Khan on Padma Shri. And thank you, gentlemen, for your time. We will see you again in 3 days' time as we head to Hamilton. And we will talk a bit more about the Lord of the Rings on that occasion. Thank you, Harsha. Thank you, Zaheer Khan. We'll see you all then. Same time. This is 11:50 in the morning is when we get underway. 12:20 is when the match starts, Indian Standard Time. India 2-0 up in the series. Lots to celebrate. We'll see you soon. My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live.